Hey everybody, welcome back to 6 Line. It's me, Richter, joined here with my awesome co-host, Alchemist Joker.
How
for
are
today.
you? How you feeling, Rick? After all that, how you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. You know, 1600 DPI, playing some games, just being all shaky, being all crazy. I love these video games. Really hypes up, pulls up my adrenaline, just gets me hyped. Love it. But hey, we're joined here today with two devs from for the game maker Dungeons of Edera. We're here joined with Matt and Roman. Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Hi.
So
we're gonna
go to the trailer. Tell us a little bit about Dungeons of Edera. Like, tell us what the game's about.
Yeah, so Dungeons of Edera is a roguelike action RPG that's going to have players play through the campaign in these self-contained dungeons where they're going to be battling monsters, enemies, collecting lots of loot, of course, and materials that they'll take back to the town for crafting. Each dungeon always has a boss monster, which you're going to have to battle with, that's going to gate these permanent bonuses to your character that we call boons. And this is important because it will persist through death, because death is really unforgiving here. If you die in a dungeon, you're going to lose most of your loot and go back to town empty-handed.
It sounds remarkably tense, and I would kind of like to see a trailer of that so I can know exactly what I'm getting into. So before we go any further, to the trailer we go.
It didn't always used to be like this. Our land, our town, torn apart by the Empire. New world, there's no looking back. We must fight to reclaim.
That is beautiful.
Yes, that was, you have me at magic. I saw magic, I'm down. Just fire, catch things on fire for days.
Oh yeah, lots of magic in here. Lots of play types you can do too.
So in your trailer, I hear there's a voice announcer for it. Do you have a lot of VO in this game?
We do. We tried to get as many of the lines voice act as we can, so we got a few great voice actors who voice a lot of lines in the game.
Nice. Is there different weapons that you can use when going through the game? I see that it's like a sword and shield, or I think I might have saw a bow or a pike.
Yeah, Roman, you want to talk about the different kinds of play styles you can use?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really up to the character to build, or really up to the player to build a character however they like. So one of the fun things about this game is that, you know, all the loot is procedurally generated. So there's multiple different types of weapons, and that also correlates with the spells. So you have like one-handed weapons, and then two-handed weapons, and then the one-handed weapons, you know, you can either have on the opposite hand like a shield to help defend, or like a wand for casting different types of spells depending on the spell you have, or you could even have like an offhand weapon for certain types of like dual wielding spells. And then so that way it's kind of up to the player to build the character however they see fit, really. And of course there's a bow as well with bow spells. And yeah.
Dual wielding spells? What? Oh, I'm game for this. This is really cool. So it looks like that you're fighting, what type of creatures are those? Those look like orcs?
Yeah, so there are a couple different kind of enemy factions. Right now you're seeing the orc faction, which includes, you know, orc, trolls, goblins, traditional fantasy types. There's also some humans, and we're planning some cool additional factions in the future.
Okay, so do you always play as a human faction, or can you swap to a different faction?
So you as the player, like, there's actually a storyline behind the game, and I can actually go into that a little bit.
Okay.
So if I can go to the story, there's 4 primary kind of countries that make up the land of Edera, and the primary one, and the antagonist for the game, is the Oswary Empire. And for hundreds of years, they ruled over the land of Edera. But as the line of emperors became more greedy and ambitious, they started launching these military campaigns outside the boundaries of Edera. And this really put a tax on the people of Edera. And so after some time, they got so fed up with it, the northern part of Edera, these three distinct cultures, they came together to form this rebellion. And this tri-alliance of factions started this rebellion. And though it wasn't successful in overthrowing the emperor, they did enough damage to where they were able to form, three countries of their own. And so this is where the game picks up. After all this time, after these three countries kind of forgot the pain that the Osweries had on them, they start these rivalries and bickering between them. And this doesn't go unnoticed by the emperor, who can sense that friction between the nations, and is kind of kindling the fire there in the through like acts of subterfuge, and because he wants to reconquer all that land. So this is where the story is going to take place. You take the role of this young man in the Arbitum state who had his town destroyed on this Oswary warpath. And throughout the story, and I won't go too much in it. Let the players find out for themselves. But you're gonna traverse all three of these distinct cultures and try to get them to reform this tri-alliance and overthrow that emperor once and for all.
So you say young man. Have at it.
One thing I have to say, and I hope that you see this as this is a really beautiful game, and I know that that indie games come in all different shapes and sizes, but I'm very curious about what the size of your team is for this game, because just looking at the systems that are here, there are so many intricate systems. You have your your menus, your combat, and things like that. So tell me a little bit about how many members of your are on your team, and how long it kind of took you to get this game to where it is.
So the game's actually been in development for, I think, over 2 years now. I started this as a solo project back in the day, and it's really been just come of its own. And a lot of the art you see here is from the Unreal Marketplace, which has allowed me to iterate so quickly and get the market so fast, and allow us just to focus on the development. And since we hit early access, I've been able to expand the team. Rowan's been with me from the start on doing a lot of the spell work. We have two amazing level designers, Ross and Jens, and of course our writer, Colin.
The combat
so
in this
you
game
said
is really, really cool.
It does look really good. But you said young man. Is there a character creator, or are you just this one character?
Yeah, you want to talk about that a little bit, Roman?
Yeah, sure. So at the start of the game, there is like a character customization, and then you can go through and customize like this guy right here has like silver hair, kind of a bearded old man kind of look. But you can kind of do whatever you want, and you can choose like different factions you want to start with, and then yeah, I think that's about it. I can think of right now.
So you said factions. Is there also like character classes that you can create, or is it just whatever you equip, that's what you use?
So each of the different factions has like their own, as they have like their own unique culture, they also have their own spells unique to that culture, and they have like whole background history. So as you kind of level up, you don't have to pick like a class from the beginning. You can kind of build it how you see fit. But as you progress and levels, you can kind of build to different skill trees to kind of build your character whatever suits your play style, really.
Nice. I really like games that are.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I really like games that allow you to. Here's a game. Here's a character. Create it however you want. However you see fit. You can put points into wherever and use whatever items that you want to use, and just go have fun within the world. Those are great.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's always hard to strike a balance. You want to make it something where the character has something to work towards, but you also don't want to make it like a grind just for the sake of a grind. I think it's delicate balance, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so and one part of the aspect of the game is, you're in these dungeons. You'll always go back to town, and after he defeats this boss, you'll see him get one of these permanent boons. But back in town, you'll be able to bring in more trainers, which unlock these spell trees from each of the different cultures. And originally we had that gated behind the campaign progress, but feedback from the players, they wanted that immediately from the get-go. They didn't want to have to play long to become like a summoner or necromancer or a dual-wielding archer. So that's one of the changes we actually made recently, was all the trainers are available at the first town, or hub as we call them, to be unlocked, and so you can use those cool spells.
Now, one of the things you mentioned is that this game has kind of procedurally generated loot. So I would assume, just based on the fact that you can create your own character from each of these different tribes and you have procedurally generated loot, it kind of prevents a thing that you kind of see most common, that where you find one thing that's really good and you just stick with that one thing all the way through. Talk to me a little bit about the decision to kind of to make the loot procedurally generated and how that will affect how the players progress through the game.
Yeah, so the loot procedurally generated, but each has an item level. So as you get higher levels, you'll start to get more powerful items. As you can see, there's a rarity on items similar to other games you've probably played in the action RPG genre. So the higher level you get, the higher stats you'll get on these weapons. There's some legendary weapons that are the highest tier that very low chance to get, but really you'll be using those for quite some time. And there's also what we recently just added is weapon crafting. So you can break down those weapons you earn in the dungeon for materials to craft weapons of your own. Of course, that's going to take some skill points, so there's a balance there.
So you have to get up in higher skill points in order to start crafting certain level weapons?
Exactly. And I don't know if this video will show it, but here's actually Shimmer Spore Caverns. It's a new level that just came out recently. But yeah, you'll have to spend your talents points to basically unlock certain levels of weapon crafting and eventually armor crafting as well.
Oh, the swipes from the dual wielding looks so cool.
So one of the things I noticed in the tooltips is that you can hire townspeople in the hub to accompany you on your journeys. Is there ever going to be is that kind of going to be a framework for maybe creating a multiplayer component to this later, or is it one of those things you kind of want to just leave this as a single player experience?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. Roman, you probably answered that a million times. You want to take that?
Yeah. Number one feature request for sure.
I'd say, while we, of course, multiplayer would be amazing. Definitely agree. But just from the code base where it is right now and how we've progressed so far, it would take a really major overhaul and, on our part, a lot of learning to make that happen. So that's just not in scope for our initial release.
Yeah, definitely when you're creating a single player game and then you're like, okay, let's add a multiplayer aspect to it, that just completely flops backwards or upside down to try and do that, because it's like, all right, we got pre-generated levels and then the weapons are all just they come in at random and they're all different, and now we have to do that for a second player, and it's just like, okay, wait, if there's two players in it and they open the chest, do they both get the loot? Do they get separate loot? How does all that, trying to code for all that is a nightmare. But when you get it all together, it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Dungeons of Edera 2 multiplayer from the ground up.
So piggybacking off of that, we have a question from chat that I feel like fits in perfectly here from Bredifer, which is, what has been the biggest challenge of developing this game?
Roman, you want to start? I'll catch up after.
Well, the biggest challenge for me, this is the first professional, developer type project I've had where I have real users. So I think for me, it's really working on a timeline where we have we tell people we have a set date. We need to have this many features by this set date, and so working with a community, listening to their feedback, and then iterating the game after we have that initial launch to fix bugs and respond to people's requests and comments. It's kind of a new experience for me. So I'd say for me, that's probably the biggest takeaway I've had so far. But I mean, Matt, you've been doing this this was like your baby, so I think you probably have a bit different of experience.
Yeah. First off, I just want to say thank you, Roman, for saying this is your first professional project. But I guess the hardest part is, Roman's right. This really is my baby. So like dealing with like feedback it has been, it's been good. You put yourself out there, and feedback comes in so many ways. And I use that term loosely for some of the stuff that indie devs have to deal with through the community and the players on Steam. So but you have to remember, like, and even the most negative stuff that's said, there is some truth that can be found with it, and it's just listen to the players. How can you make those small improvements, not to drastically change, but it's always about making that next step, just improving the game always.
I hear you on that. Like, feedback does hurt, because if it's your baby, you're like, no, they don't like this. Oh no, that kind of hurts me a little bit. Because when I give feedback to people, because I'm in the QA sector of games and just technology in general, and I tell everybody, I'm like, dude, I'm kind of forceful when it comes to me giving feedback. I don't mean to hurt you, but this is just how I'm going to give it to you. I'm sorry if it's going to hurt, but
Yeah, but feedback is so important to make sure you're on the right path, and the game's enjoyable and fun, because sometimes you get stuck in that tunnel vision on what you're making. You forget about is it fun for the player base.
So in talking about the feedback that you've gotten, one thing I do want to ask in regards to that is, what is one of the, from your memory, what was one of the most impactful pieces of feedback that you got? Be it, you don't have to say whether it was positive or negative, but what was one piece of feedback that you got that you really went like, what, that's a point I hadn't considered?
Oh man, that's a good one. I don't know, Roman, do you have any good examples on that?
Yeah, for me, thinking about it, I think developing the game, you kind of have a different perspective versus playing the game. So, like, I spent hours in the actual game environment, but in a totally different mindset than like the average player, and especially our extremely dedicated players who get to really high levels, and you can really see them start to min-max things in certain ways that I would never think of. So I feel like for me, once I started seeing people kind of playing the game in their own way, and then they'd be giving feedback on like balancing, and probably like, because my whole thing is like, I did a lot of work on the spells, so when I see people using spells at super high levels, doing things I would never expect. Like, I remember a video I saw on Twitter where someone got to the end of a level in like less than 10 seconds, and I didn't even know it was possible, because they're just like, they had like used 15 spells at once, and then they just beat the boss, and it was like the end of the level. And I was like, wow, like, I made all these spells and I didn't even know that was basically capable of happening. But that was probably the biggest thing I can think off the top of my head, just like the balancing.
Melt the boss, you're just like, it's supposed to take longer than that. That was,
So are you able to dual class? Can I put points into like a summoner and a mage, or like a summoner and a dual wielder, and then swap between those classes, or is it just combined into one?
So we have different...
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Roman.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, yeah, you definitely can do that. And one of the things we implemented early on was having different character slots, so that you can kind of build different characters how you want. But as far as each class, you can put as many points into one class, and then if you get bored, you can go to another class. And then one of the big feature requests that we implemented was actually being able to reset your points with a certain amount of gold that you acquire, so you can change your character later on in the game, as you kind of unlock new spells, unlock new weapons and abilities, kind of change your playstyle if you want.
I just saw from the video that y'all have, I call it parkour, but it's more a climbing mechanic. Yes.
Yeah, Mantling.
That's awesome. Yeah, mantling.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, not a lot of people do that.
There's a lot of bugs that come with that one.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of bugs.
Yeah.
So
But it's great because
subject
it allows you to implement some verticality in your levels, like secret area zones. As you can see, like, this one you have to jump from mushroom to mushroom to reach this treasure chest in a faraway spot. So it allows give the players the opportunity to discover like secret rooms and stuff like that once you can implement it well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say this is a great level to showcase that because of the verticality that is kind of unique to this level. It's kind of, I think it's a bit experimental compared to a lot of the other levels. And it turned out very well, I think.
So you were mentioning that adding the mantling mechanic has kind of some inherent issues with it. One of the questions we got from chat kind of lines up with that as well, which is what was a major challenge you encountered during development, and how did you kind of mitigate or resolve it?
Man, so many challenges. I gotta say, for mantling, like there's some stuff like if you're mantling on like a barrel and the barrel gets destroyed, you like instantly teleport to like the center of the map or something, and it's just so many bugs. Like, and players find these like no matter what. You think something's rock solid, once you release it, you'll just find out the crazy ways that our players are like testing the limits, trying to break our game, which is awesome. That because we're such a small team, we don't have a really dedicated QA, and it's just great to have a community of people who, not maliciously, but they want to break it. They want to get those bugs. They're the ones who want to report it and have you fix it and see you fix it.
Is there a balance between fixing something that is a bug that might have an unintended like positive effect? Like, the example you gave for the barrel is probably not a positive, no, it's not something that's an intended one. But were there things like, for example, with the boss that you mentioned, Roman, that like someone popped 15 spells and melted the boss in like 2 seconds? Was there a moment where you went, like you saw that unintended interaction and you went, okay, that's not how I designed that. But if someone wants to go to the effort to do all of that, to be able to melt this boss in 2 seconds, we're not going to patch that out. We're not going to fix it. I want to leave that in.
I feel like just off the top of my head, the ragdoll physics that we have in the game is something that was kind of a funny bug, and it's kind of just adds charm to the game at this point. So if you ever get a nice headshot on someone with a bow, you might see them fly like 50 feet in the air. Options
Yes.
depending on what spell you use.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I
It's
wish we
storyboard
got
telling.
that video.
This is great.
My son is too injured to be grabbed like
Yeah, a lot of the story comes through in these graphic novel style kind of cutscenes, which is really great. We work with a really great artist whose name is actually Roman as well, coincidentally. But he's done a lot of the work here. And this is how as you progress through the campaign, we'll unravel more of the story through these graphic novel type cutscenes.
I would say is very favorable. I've had several other
So,
And just to follow
can you
with,
give us-
with Roman's comment
go ahead.
here on the ragdoll, that's like a bug we from very early just randomly you would hit an enemy and they would like launch like way up in the sky, and players saw that and they loved it. I remember like one YouTube video, like that was his main thing, like showing all the sometimes like I think it's like I don't know, I guess I've seen it like maybe 2% chance, but sometimes it just happens and we're like, okay, players love this. Let's leave it in. Just leave it in. And we're going to see some mage gameplay coming up right now.
Oh, cool. Okay. So while that's coming up, I have another question from chat. And this one might be a little, you might not be able to answer this one, and I understand if you can't. But can you give us a sneak peek of any future content that might be in this game or anything that you might be adding in the future?
Yeah, we actually have a roadmap posted online, and I can share a link of what we're adding to game to what we would call 1.0.
Okay.
Like some of the things we're going to add new like quest types you know, have your standard dungeons where you go in, do a simple quest, collect, gather, kill. There's also like defense where waves of enemies are coming towards you and you have to like hold kind of a choke point. But one of the things we're excited to add is this like assaulting a castle, like a siege type quest. And so that'll be I think really excite the players being part of this, like with more than just you, like being part of a siege with multiple NPCs.
So before this stage, I saw that there were a couple of different quests that were there. Can you pick up more than one quest at once, or is it like one quest per run in the game, or per next dungeon coming up?
Oh, you want to take this one, Roman?
Sure. So I would say you can pick up multiple quests, and then there's also the storyline. You can go in the town, you can talk to multiple different characters, and then there's also, if you just kind of want to do some dungeon crawling, there's like a sign posted up in the town where you can go up and then a side quest you can select from. So you can kind of choose to go the campaign at whatever pace you want, and then if you want to like, beef up your character a little bit, get some cool weapons and get some points and some gold to kind of like, get some cool gear before you gotta go progress into the storyline, you can do that.
You mentioned that if you die in this game, you lose all of your loot. How hard was it to balance kind of making that mechanic not too punishing to where players would not want to take risks, but making it punishing enough that like you could prevent people from just trying to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks?
That made people really mad at first.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that when we first released the game in early access, we didn't have like an easy mode. Like, I don't know if you saw this, but when you're selecting a mission, you can select the difficulty, which plays a big part into how punishing it is. But the first release, we didn't have an easy mode, so death, you would lose everything. Since then, we heard the feedback, and we've implemented. You can select easy, so you get less XP, less rewards, but you don't lose your items on death. Anything above normal and the tiers above, you're going to lose everything that isn't soulbound, and that's a mechanic where you can spend a lot of your resources to make an item persist through death. But as the tiers progress, there's higher chance for higher level loot, more rewards, and that's kind of the risk kind of reward balance there.
You guys ever think about adding back in that permadeath mode just as okay, you guys have had time with this game, you've picked it apart, you got all your stuff min-maxed. Now, if you really want to see a challenge, permadeath mode. You die, that entire character is wiped out. Is there any idea for adding that in maybe down the line once players have kind of gotten the mechanics down and gotten attached to their characters?
I would say it's kind of like Dungeon Runner, right?
Yeah. So there's an alternate mode through the campaign. It's called Dungeon Runner, where you basically just spawn in as a random guy you don't create. Level 1, but with all the spells trees unlocked already, and you're just going against dungeon after dungeon after dungeon until you die. And once you die, that's it. That character's gone. You do get a little bit of the gold you collected to your campaign, but that guy's gone.
Nice.
Well, guys, this looks great. People can check it out on Steam. Did y'all say that there's a demo, or is the game released?
It is released in the early access, so you can pick it up right now, and hopefully by the end of this year, early in Q1 next year, we'll hit 1.0.
Ooh, yeah, excited. Well, thank you guys for coming around and chatting with us here at 6 Online. It was good having y'all in. I really liked what I saw. Definitely gonna get
thanks,
this on my
guys.
wish list.